You'd think running moonshine from one side of the state to another would make you a pretty good driver. Well, if the opening credits of Immortal Redneck are anything to go by, this just ain't true. Having decided to leave the deep south of America, Creamer's titular hero blazes a trail through the arid deserts of Egypt, hollering the obligatory yeehaws and woohoos before launching his dune buggy off the side of a cliff. With the aid of Egypt's more iconic gods, the now immortal Redneck finally comes to, confronted with 3 pyramids and a fully loaded shotgun. As you may have guessed, story isn't really that important in Immortal Redneck. Why was this redneck in Egypt? How did he become immortal? Who knows and who cares? When you've got a vast selection of guns and an insatiable urge to get to the top of a monster-infested pyramid, are we really going to worry about the details? Immortal Redneck is a tongue-in-cheek arcade game that mixes classic first-person shooter action with a dusting of the modern roguelike. Each floor of the pyramid is filled with randomly generated rooms. There is a literal skill tree that you must grow to increase your power. 9 unique deities are able to imbue you with special abilities, as well as the staple of all roguelikes, the much-loved permadeath. There are multiple boss fights, hidden treasures, traps, power-ups, puzzle rooms, speedrun sections. Immortal Redneck is just rammed with all the best bits of old-school shooters. However, for an FPS game to stand a chance in the already flooded shooter market, it must have solid controls that allow the action to be fluid, frenetic, and most importantly, fun. Immortal Redneck nails all of these things. Combat is balletic. You bounce around the room like a sugar-fueled child on a space hopper, firing shot after shot into the tattered bandages of mummies as they discharge heat rays from the hollows that used to contain eyes. Effortlessly dash from ledge to ledge, popping up behind unsuspecting archers and unloading a full clip into their smug Anubis-endowed faces, or slam on the brakes and put it into reverse as that terrifying click of an empty clip has you pulling out all of your best evasive manoeuvres. I will admit that I had to go into the settings and remap the controller to unleash the full potential of Immortal Redneck, but this is as close to the feel of a classic mouse and keyboard shooter as I've ever experienced on console. One of my favourite aspects of Immortal Redneck is that the game isn't stupidly difficult. There isn't a monster you can't easily defeat, you just have to learn how. As much of the game is about twitch reactions, Immortal Redneck revitalises that retro gaming nuance of having to master the game's mechanics. To be truly successful, you must familiarise yourself with every attribute of every monster. How their attacks work, the trajectory of their projectiles, their movement in relation to your actions, and then how best to use your surroundings to counteract their onslaught and dominate. There's a lot of skill involved in Immortal Redneck, and Creamer have done a wonderful job in designing a group of monsters which fully put a player's prowess to the test. None better exemplify this characteristic than the bosses you encounter on the 3rd and 7th floor of each pyramid. Having blasted your way through waves of melee and projectile-based enemies, you'll be confronted with a named enemy, with its own unique room and pattern for you to learn. Unlike a lot of bullet sponge offerings you usually get from FPS games, Immortal Redneck's villains are far more reminiscent of iconic platforming games, where you must destroy objects to deactivate a shield, or use platforms to avoid a catastrophic event, then dash in to lay a devastating blow. It's a system that means you will die numerous times, but once you've learnt the structure of a fight, you'll be able to take them down in seconds. Unfortunately, Immortal Redneck has one infuriating mechanic, which had me struggling to re-enter the pyramids. I even described how I'd rather do something horrific to my unmentionables than have to do another run during a recent Indie Credible podcast. Scrolls can be found throughout the levels, offering bonuses to income, increasing your ammo capacity, granting extra jumps, better health pickups, etc. Or hindering your progress by slowing you down or causing your guns to do less damage. This in itself is not an issue, as these are commonplace in roguelikes. However, there are times you'll pick up a scroll and it will end your run. You could have been dominating the level, blasting monsters, taking little to no damage, and then wham! You pick up a scroll that stops you from jumping, your only exit staring at you from across a lava lake. Or just before you take the elevator to the final boss, wham! A scroll swaps all your weapons for what may as well be Care Bear plushies. It sucks. Runs can take up to an hour to reach the zenith. Pick up a shitty scroll and that's it. The last 60 minutes of your life have been a complete waste. I want to lose because of errors I've made, not because the god of RNG has decided it's my turn to die. It takes all of the wonderfully crafted skill out of the game and leaves you with a bitter taste in your mouth. It is possible to turn auto pickup off in the menus, allowing you to do a run without picking up a single scroll, but if you want to have any chance of completing the initial pyramid within the first 12 hours of gameplay, you're going to have to collect scrolls and leave your fate in the hands of the all-powerful RNG. Kramer have created a top-class shooter that suffers from a common ailment found in modern FPS games: the grind and RNG. No matter how procedurally generated a game is, after 10 hours you'll begin to see the same selection of rooms over and over again, especially as you'll be trapped inside the same pyramid for all of those hours, facing the same monsters and hearing the same one-liners. I knew every possible combination of fiends I was about to face just by looking through the doorway, where the secrets were, where the traps could be found, the best jump spots and cheats. Immortal Redneck very quickly stopped testing my skill and became an exercise in perseverance. Add into this the frustrating presence of the RNG god and his scrolls of doom, and there were times I just had to turn my PS4 off and walk away. Immortal Redneck is a brilliantly realised FPS roguelike that can be a lot of fun, and once you do manage to complete all 3 pyramids, a new infinite tower opens its doors, granting you the chance to compete against other players to see who can ascend to the highest floor of an unending spire. But I think I've spent enough time in the desert for now.